Hello, this is Chrystal Meach with Tao of the Heart, and today I have Tanya Walker with me. Thank you for coming, Tanya.
Thank you for having me, Chrystal.
And so I met Tanya on Alignable. We connected on Alignable, and I can't wait for her to share her story of personal growth. So we're going to start right where she knew that she was on a path and she took the leap. So
Yeah, I took the leap for sure.
yeah. So how'd you do that? Let's
Okay, well, it definitely was a process. It was a lot of self work, of inner work, shadow work, understanding myself on much deeper levels, letting go of profound lifelong insecurities, fear of judgment. I think as women, we have a lot of that, and really trusting, learning how to trust the process and aligning myself. Alignment was key. And so I'll bypass the whole childhood thing and kind of fast forward to Costa Rica. I was on a family holiday and I was riding my bicycle, and literally a download came through me. Call it what you want, a calling from God. I don't know what it was. It was an awakening. And I went home and I quit my job that I loved. And I opened up my own private practice in my home. And I went back to Costa Rica for a month. And I didn't know why I went back. I had no reason why I was going back. And through daily meditations, midnight meditations, all night meditations, I just kept asking myself, why am I here? What was this calling that I meant to be here? And what kept coming through me was that I was going to operate retreats. Now, I'd never been on a retreat. I never really knew what they did on retreats. I just thought, well, on old school pen and paper, 3-ring duotang paper, I wrote out what my retreat looked like. And 6 months later, I was operating retreats. And I want to make it known that I did live most of my life in fear of failure, fear of judgment. So this was a massive leap of faith, but there was something, I don't know, about this time in my life where I felt confident. And I returned home and life started to shift, and I began on this expansive growth and healing journey, and just letting go of things that didn't serve me, releasing toxicity, and really remaining laser focused on my soul purpose and what I wanted in life. Um, and obviously keeping in mind my children and whatnot, but really not forsaking myself anymore as I had done for so long. And I ended up leaving my marriage of 25 years to a man that I loved deeply. And I sold everything I had and I moved to Costa Rica. I bought land and I built a property with 4 men I didn't know. I didn't speak Spanish. I had no support. And I just kept trusting the process. And yes, I was scared. Yes, I was scared, but I knew that this is what I was supposed to do. And I continued to work online with clients and do individual retreats for women. And one night there was a blood moon, and I had felt that after a full year or more of healing and kind of just really focusing on myself, I was ready to meet someone. And there was a blood moon that night. So I laid in my little meditation shala under the blood moon and I asked for my husband. I said, I'm ready, send him to me. And I knew, I was very clear in my visualizations of what I did not want in my next relationship, because we all know what we want. We have to be clear on what we don't want. And within 1 week, I met him, and that was
how,
5 years ago.
oh my gosh. It's like eat, pray, love.
You know, kind of, yeah, yeah, kind of, yeah. And the more work that I continue to do and continue to do daily, um, just the more that the law of karma goes to work, as you and I discussed.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit more about like when people didn't support you and like you had this download and you knew that you had to do it, but how did you make that choice to
That's a great question. I think by that point, I was ready to let go of what didn't serve me, and people that couldn't support me, I was conscious enough to understand that it's not because they don't love me, it's because they don't understand. They don't have the emotional awareness. They didn't understand what I'd been through. And I was on a fast track path of exponential growth, like very, very quickly, because again, as you and I discussed, when you start growing and stepping into your personal power, it feels so good. It is so powerful.
yes.
And that energy begins to attract the sameness, the likeness. So you begin also attracting people who are in that energetic space. So yeah, there were a lot of people that didn't support me, a lot of people that didn't want anything to do with me. And of course there was pain, but it was time for me to move on.
Yeah, and then the healing that comes in with that, like the awareness of, hey, even though this isn't for me, I mean, that person isn't for me right now. The having the space to say, someone is, like your husband. Like
Abs- Absolutely. I mean, there's that old saying that people come into your life for a day, a month, a year, a season, a lifetime. I really think that's true. I mean, I've really shifted my mindset from what I thought relationships were to what I now know they are. And I can't force somebody to see things the way I see things. I mean, this is what makes us all beautifully unique is that we all enter relationships with our own childhood experiences and conditioning and whatnot. So everybody's reality is going to be different. And through growth, I really learned the importance of values and living in accordance with values. It's not just, I remember someone saying to me that their value was respect, but this person was always in conflict with other people and didn't speak so kindly. So the person wanted respect but didn't know how to give it. So values means that we live in accordance with them as well, and they're very clearly defined. And when you are clear on your values and you love yourself enough to stick with them and have boundaries around them, everything will be brought to you and you will be aligned with the right people in the right situations when the time is right.
yeah, I totally believe that. And could you talk a little bit more about boundaries? Because I know when we last talked, you were talking about how important it is to have boundaries and the healing around boundaries too.
100%, Chrystal. I think, and I'm going to generalize here, but growing up in my environment and my community, most of my friends, we weren't taught boundaries by our parents. We were told what to do, how to be, how to act, be polite, use your manners, and show up in that way. But I wasn't taught how to say no. I was taught how to say yes, how to please people, how to always be there. But it turned out that I was often forsaking myself um, because I was showing up a little too much at the expense of my own mental, emotional, and physical health. And that was because I had a need to be needed. I wanted to be chosen. I wanted validation. So I thought that I was just this really great person, this good friend, this good daughter, but always emotionally exhausted. And
Mhm.
boundaries were very, very difficult for me to say, no, that doesn't work for me, or I'm sorry, I'm not going to attend because whatever, and to be honest about it, because it was really easy to tell little white lies. It was much easier because I never wanted to hurt or offend someone. But with that behavior, then comes shame and guilt. And that's toxic and low vibrational. I didn't know how to show up as Tanya because I wasn't taught. I didn't have any of those examples around me growing up. So a lot of my path was self-learned, and it began with baby steps. It began with something like being asked to go to a potluck, and it's like, oh God, like my day's already full and da 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 da. And to say, you know what, I'm really sorry. I'm so busy, I'm not going to be able to contribute. Maybe I'll bring a bottle of wine or something. Um, and just really showing up authentically. But people that have boundaries have confidence. They're they're aligned with their values. They know what they want, they know what they don't want, and it's a beautiful way to protect yourself emotionally, with reasonable boundaries, of course. Like if someone's escalating in the way that they speak to me or using words that I am not aligned with, in the past, many years ago, I would have just taken it and walked away and thought, wow, I can't believe that person thinks that's okay. But today I'll say, you know what? I hear what you're saying. I acknowledge that you're frustrated, but please don't speak to me in that tone. And so now boundaries are very easy for me to exercise.
And how does it feel? How does it feel to have that?
You know, it's a powerful feeling without coming from a sense of ego. It's in the sense that it's powerful because I'm showing up as Tanya and who Tanya wants to be and always wanted to be. And I am leading by such better example for my two daughters. Because there was a time, quite a few years ago where I sat them down on the edge of the bed and I said, listen, I'm really sorry. I feel I steered you wrong, in some ways that I mothered you. And they looked at me and they thought I was crazy. Like, no, you're great. And I said, no, I didn't teach you boundaries. And I really didn't listen to you sometimes because I thought I knew best. So I discounted your emotions and your feelings. And I just want to make that right. And moving forward, I'm going to show up as my best possible self. And, now they have their values in check and they have their boundaries in check, and they're clearly defined. And we should be unapologetic about them. If somebody is offended because I have respectfully and compassionately conveyed my boundaries, that's an inner wound in that person. That trigger is an unhealed wound in that person. That has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways that kind of like cuts the cord. Like I think I can speak to in my own life where it feels like, I'm always trying to please someone else. And when I realized that I was doing this and then betraying in a way myself and my own values, then it was first the awareness, but then it was like what to do next, like the step that you
Right.
take next, the action, and then having that separation of, hey, this is my feelings, and whatever your feelings are, I don't have any control over it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, there's relationships, the number one breakdown. I work a lot in relationships, and the number one breakdown of relationships is the ability to communicate feelings, the ability of open self-expression in a healthy way. Typically what we do is I completely identify this. I mean, I was the shutdown queen. So I swept everything under the carpet. I was petrified of conflict or confrontation. So anybody that spoke to me in an assertive voice, I took for yelling, and I could feel my nervous system just kick right into fight flight mode. So I think that communication is a skill that everybody needs to learn, because this is how we cultivate, first of all, true intimacy in an intimate relationship, because we have to be able to show up as our authentic selves and make ourselves understood in a respectful manner.
Yeah, and there's almost like a shift too in the seeing yourself as lovable.
right? Yeah, I always thought I saw myself as lovable, and then I really took a look at my history, at some of the people that I chose to surround myself with, and I don't want any of my friends to listen to this and think that that they didn't matter and I didn't love them, but there were some people that I chose that just were not healthy for me, especially in childhood, um, and really not knowing who I was. And I often felt like a fish out of water, even in my adult life, because I just didn't kind of like fall into the same, I don't know, category as everybody else, because I looked at life through a very different lens. Um, and recognizing that I am lovable. I'm fully lovable. I just need to be aligned with someone who has the same core values as me and values growth. I need that, and I know that now, but I didn't know that then.
Yeah, and also like the belief that those people are out there that are going to show up. I mean, the way you attract once you do all that healing, and those people do show up in your life as you do that. I mean, that's the beauty of the healing,
And
right?
they do show up. I mean,
Mhm.
just you and I being here today,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're two women aligned with a similar purpose, and here we are, through quantum energy.
Yeah.
We're brought together, and the brain is a magnificent instrument, because it can be used to self sabotage, or it can be used to manifest. And the number of thoughts we have, I can't remember specifically the percentage, but it's something like 97% of the thoughts we have in a day are negative. They're in our subconscious mind, but they're there. And so working with neuroplasticity and really shifting your brain and your thoughts is the foundation of the whole, for me, is part of the methodology of healing and growth and manifestation.
Can you talk more about that, like neuroplasticity? What is that?
Yeah, so recognizing that the brain is essentially, if we think of it as plastic, that it can shift shape. We can change our thoughts. We can access parts of our brain if we want to. We all have the ability to connect to our higher self, to higher brain living. And I'm certainly not an expert in this area, but it's something that I touch on in my work. And it's bringing yourself to the highest possible vibration of where you're at, and maintaining that composure in challenging, emotionally charged situations, right? Because it could be really easy to lose it in the
Yeah.
wrong way, right? To enter
Mhm.
emotional regulation. But to be able to connect to yourself, the heart brain connection, and recognize that you are the only person in control of your thoughts. You are the only person in control of your actions. I mean, these are, you and I talked about conscious choices. Well, here we go. This is a conscious choice of how am I going to show up in every moment of every day. And I'm
Yes.
not saying I'm perfect and I make mistakes, but I catch it and I come back to it and I apologize if I need to apologize and try to make it right. But our brain, it controls everything. It controls our outlook on life. It controls our perceived threats. It's what keeps us in, fight, flight, freeze response. It works with our nervous system. So there's a lot going on. And when we wake up in the morning and we look in the mirror, if we have a negative thought about how we look, well, that's just negative energy that you're projecting out there. And that is part of your karma.
Mhm.
right? Because we all need to recognize that we're worthy and we have gifts and that we're beautiful. And I'm not talking aesthetically because, that's irrelevant. And that we
Yeah.
all have purpose and we all have contributions to make to society to build in the collective, of making the world a better place. And so working on my brain was, I would say, the second place that I went to. My first place was, well, it was still my brain, it was self awareness, really diving into self awareness and then shifting my thoughts.
And can you explain, like, because I think you saw the power in the awareness of the thoughts, and
Mm-hmm.
then it became faster, almost like your healing became faster because you were more aware. And can you kind of explain that domino effect of healing?
Yeah,
Um,
for me anyway, and what I do for work, it all has to come down to awareness. It all has to come down to self-awareness. First of all, we need to know what is it that I need to heal. And it doesn't always have to be some big traumatic event. It might be that you have a fear of eating in a restaurant by yourself. Whatever that looks like that you need to heal, you have to have awareness around that so that you can take the next step. And it's usually the next step that's the scary part because your brain is going to default over and over again to the negative. Your ego is going to keep you stuck. So this is where you have to work on your brain and your thoughts to say, no, I'm safe. I can do this. And, what's the worst possible thing that's going to happen to me? I might feel uncomfortable. I might feel embarrassed or whatever that looks like. Well, I'm going to survive that. And so the more you start becoming aware of your thoughts and taking action, and I always say begin with baby steps, just begin with small things because that will fast track you to the bigger things. And you begin walking, but before you know it, you're running because it feels good because now you've got confidence. Now you're releasing your fears. And, you know, trauma, energy, trauma is not what happened to you. Trauma is the energy that lives inside your body. So as you continue to make shifts and grow and acknowledge and forgive and recognize and speak whatever it is you need to do to heal that, you will arrive to homeostasis. Now there's a lot more that can go into that, but that's a big part of it in my experience.
yeah, and I just want to kind of go back to, like you said, your ego, like you have to kind of like talk to your ego to say that it's safe. And that's kind of like, I mean, the Tao, DAO of karate, in a way, in your mind, because your ego is reacting from that place of trauma, and
Yeah.
your system, yeah, can you hold that space to say, I'm going to survive this? Like, can you speak to that experience?
Right. And we're designed to survive this. We are incredible forms of cells and light, and we are designed to heal on all counts. I mean, if we spend a little bit of time, Googling, I mean, I work with ALS. I have many clients globally with ALS, and some of them are reversing symptoms. And
That's
ALS
amazing.
is, it is, it's with an organization I work with, but there are people that have healed cancer, that have healed, type 1 diabetes, that have healed, and they're doing the work. And a lot of that work has to do with their mind. I mean, if we, anybody who knows Joe Dispenza, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
all about the power of the mind and the power of energy and how we can control components of our physiology. We might need help in shifting some systems and need our medical team, whatever, but But we have more control than we know, or than we're giving ourselves credit for it, because the ego just says, give up. Just give up. It's too late. You can't do this. You're always going to live in this situation forever. You can't change. You're not smart. I mean, this is what it does. It keeps us in perceived threat,
Yeah, and it's almost like we give away our authority.
don't we?
Yeah,
Don't we?
and in so many ways.
Yeah, we give our power away. Oh my gosh, we give our power away, many of us, all day long without even recognizing it, with being told what to do, even though you know something's not right or you're not aligned with that, and we don't speak up. So that's giving our power away. Sometimes, we really are the ones who know best. And I would say we know best when we've really started to do that work and we've shed some layers of ourselves, and we're not so fear based, we're not so stuck in the past or in toxicity or in fear, insecurity, when we're either beginning to move out of that space or we have moved out of that space. And if we really go to our body and ask it questions, it's going to give us answers. I mean, there's functional medical doctors, integrative medical doctors, kinesiologists using muscle testing. I mean, the body will tell you what it needs. It gives you answers. And we have that power within ourselves. But we have to begin asking ourselves the right questions.
Yeah, I think there's asking and then there's also the receiving, like letting it happen, let it, and it's not always going to come in the way that we expect it to.
No, it's not. And it's not intended to, because if it's not coming to you in a time of desperation, it's the energy and the low vibration of desperation that is blocking it from coming to you.
Oh, so can you speak a little bit more about that? Like,
Yeah, well, there's something by David Hawkins. It's called the Map of Consciousness, and I use this a lot as a tool with my clients. And basically, it just shows you where you're at within your emotions and what vibration you're at, and that the lowest vibration is shame, and that's a very difficult emotion for people to work with, personally and professionally. But as you climb the map of consciousness and you get to courage, and listen, to use the map of consciousness, you got to be really honest with yourself. And this is where the self awareness work comes in first, so that you can really be honest with where I'm at, right? So I noticed that I was, although on the exterior, I was very, very happy. And there were components of me that were very, very happy. But very, very deep inside me, there was a lot of guilt and and other emotions. And it wasn't until I got to courage, which is, I think, 200 in the frequency. And when you arrive at courage, it's a tipping point. It's a pivotal point for people in healing and growth, because there's no turning back, because you're ready to say yes to me. I'm in my personal power. I'm authentic. I'm trusting the process, whatever that looks like, that courage. And you're no longer going to be overruled by the fear and the ego and the trauma and all of that that goes along with it. So it's a really, really interesting and powerful tool that can be used for individuals to see where they're at. And if someone says, "Oh my gosh, I'm living in shame, I'm doomed," no, you're not. You're not. Be proud of yourself that you've taken the step to look at that. Be proud of yourself that you're willing to acknowledge it. That's power right there. I mean, that's vulnerability, and vulnerability is a powerful tool for growth and healing,
yeah, and I feel like it's lost in our society.
isn't it? I mean, with social media, particularly, and modern world technology, we're so disconnected. We're so disconnected. I mean, I work a lot with anxiety, and it's miraculous how all of a sudden, when someone starts having those conversations that they've been putting off, how their anxiety begins to dissipate in some cases. And it's because we're just used to using our thumbs,
Yeah.
typing with our fingers to communicate. We're not expressing ourselves, personally expressing ourselves to who we need to express ourselves to. So there's a lot of anger out there, and I receive that on social media as well. I receive some anger, and it's like, you know what? I just send them light because that person's hurting and has
Yeah, it
nothing
has
to do.
nothing to do with you.
It has nothing to do with me. I just triggered some unhealed wound within that person, and the only way that person can cope is by, either spewing venom or attacking someone else, and that's how they, are doing it, and it's not
Yeah.
mine.
And there's just like such beauty in like not being attached to whatever they're saying. Like it's so freeing to be like, I don't have any control over what
Isn't
they
it?
feel.
And I think for me, yeah, there was a time when I could recognize, like, wow, that's not mine, but I still felt hurt and wounded somehow. And, well, I'm just, trying to be a really nice person and share my message and my purpose. And so, yeah, there was still, a little bit going on in there personally. And now it's like, now I see other people's pain through their actions or their non-actions. I see
Mhm.
their pain, and without judgment, might I say, without judgment. And it's that, you know what? It's yours, and it's yours alone, and it doesn't belong to me. If you're ready to shift, you can reach out, but it's not for me to try to help you or infiltrate that energetic space, because somebody who wants to change has to take that step themselves.
Yes, and, it's almost like you can love them without expectation. Like, you see, you know, what's yours and what's theirs, and, you have that space between the 2, like the separation. I
Yeah.
can't speak
And
enough about,
it's true.
loving
And that's a
someone
really
without that
profound statement.
expectation.
Yeah, that's a profound statement you made. A lot of healing and growth and healing go together. As you grow, you recognize parts of yourself that need to be healed. Even if you thought you never had to heal anything, I was that person. I didn't think I needed to heal anything. And then I recognized, man, do I have a lot to heal. But
Mhm.
letting go of expectations to an outcome is incredible. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy, but the more you start doing it, letting go of expectations to how people are going to react or respond or receive you, or it just brings you more in alignment with your own authentic self. And it also allows, you're giving other people permission to be themselves. And I think that that's a really big thing. I don't think that we're doing that enough. Is, we know who we are, and we know our values and this and that, and how could that person do that or say this or show up wearing that or whatever that looks like. There's still a lot of judgment out there, and we just need to allow everyone to be on their own journey and see the goodness within one another,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think about it with my daughter, like, and, she's this small person, and I love her as she is, and it feels so good. She wants to have pink hair. I'm not gonna give her permanent hair, pink hair, but, you wanna have pink hair for the weekend? Sure, we'll have pink hair.
Right. And it's
And
just, and I think that's the thing. It's just pink hair. It's not
yeah.
a lifelong commitment. It's just pink hair. And she's working through some things of finding her way. And it's a form of expression.
Yep. Mhm.
And it's
And
healthy.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, definitely, I definitely see that with my daughter. I mean, like, through the healing of me, like, just loving her and letting her learn. And, I'm not the only teacher. I mean, there's so many people in her life that are
Mhm.
teaching different things, and just holding that space for her as she's growing up.
And that's
It's
important
huge.
is holding space is often something that's not taught. And holding space is has profound effects on one another because it tells the other person that you matter, that I care about you. I don't, sometimes, we just don't need to give advice. Sometimes all we need to do is listen. And the more back to self awareness, and the more self awareness we have, we can recognize when we need to speak and when we don't,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Sometimes just, they just need a soft place to land. They, you know, it's holding spaces is powerful, and it's very, very healing on many, many levels.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And we unpacked so much in the short time that we were here. And I think I'm gonna like stop here. I'd love to have you on again. But
Sure,
yeah,
I'd love
thank you
to.
so much. I mean, this was such a beautiful conversation. And um, if my watchers want to talk to you or get a hold of you, how can they do that?
They can find me on most social media platforms, but you can reach me through my website at tanyawalkerwellness.com,
Okay,
and
I'll put
my address is right there.
awesome. And I'll put, all of your information in the description box below. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, Chrystal,
And
thank you so much. You have a beautiful day.
you too. Bye.
Bye.